Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I'm super excited because we're bringing back an old friend to My Perfect Failure. So to remind you, my guest today is a US-based communications and product development leader with experience in Fortune 100 companies. He is also an accomplished educator, trainer, and localizer. Her unique career spans across a number of industries, from international consulting and financial services to e-learning, international publishing, and academia. She has lived in 5 countries and speaks 5 languages. I know this, but every time I see it, I think, wow. She is a firm believer in global exchanges, and she serves on the board of directors at WorldChicago. So a very, 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 very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Tatyana Sergeyeva. How are you, Tatyana?
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Doing well.
Thank you. You look really well. You always look well, but that's a consistent theme.
Well, that's kind of you. Thank you so much.
I'm always very happy when we have conversations. I'm happy today because we're talking about a subject that is, I think, is a subject that doesn't get covered enough. I think we all know the word, and some of us may do this, but I think as a general pursuit or a general interest, I just don't think people understand it sufficiently, understand the benefits, not just to others, but also to themselves. So people are probably thinking, what's Paul talking about? So today, on today's episode of My Perfect Failure, we're going to be covering the power of volunteering. But before we get into that, just so people can, maybe who haven't listened to the previous episode, which I will put on the show notes, where we covered the power of a different subject, but we covered, I think there's a little bit of synergy, because on the previous discussion we spoke about how we can empower ourselves to do new things, because you've done that all your life. And
that's right.
If people are listening to this today and maybe don't really know how to volunteer or how it can impact them, I think there's going to be some synergies in this conversation.
Agree.
But just for people that don't quite know you, maybe you can give us a synopsis of you, and then we can get into a lovely conversation about volunteering.
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah. So, Tatyana Sergeyeva, I am based in Chicago in the United States. I am currently working in the financial sector. I work for a Fortune 100 company. However, previously, I worked in a number of industries. So some of the industries I worked at are international consulting, international publishing, and education. So, I've been anything from a teacher to an editor to a writer to a communicator, kind of product manager. The list goes on. So I like to explore different things and try new things, as you just mentioned. I am originally from Moscow, Russia. I came to the United States as an exchange student when I was 15 years old, and did a 1 year of exchange in the United States in high school. And then after that, I studied in the US for my undergraduate program. And then after that, traveled around Europe, lived in a few countries there, as well as studied. So I'm fascinated with languages. I could learn languages as a full-time job if I could. So, but also, as you mentioned, volunteering is an integral part of my life.
Yeah.
I've been volunteering since I was a little kid, and I still do that today. And I'm so excited to share with your listeners how it impacted my life.
Okay, I want to dive into that in a second, but I just want to, so you thank you for that lovely overview. And as you're giving us that lovely overview, I'm casting my memory back even into why I was so excited that we connected previously, and we had the previous conversation, the one that we recorded. And I love your adaptability to see something that can be outside of what you're currently doing and actually go for it. I do think that is a superpower, but I definitely would like to
I
have.
agree,
Yeah, it's a
Paul.
massive superpower because I think I was talking to somebody today actually, who's going to be a guest on the podcast later on this year. She's amazing, like you, another lady, and she possesses that ability as well. She will work on a wonderful project. She's a similar to you, a similar type of organization, but she's got that ability to work on something, give it your all, deliver your
Yes.
best, and then once you've done that, if you think, well, maybe I hit the kind of not the ceiling, but maybe I've achieved all I want to achieve, then your radar starts shifting a little bit. You start shifting, well, can I do something else where I can maybe use the current skills that I've got, and also I'm going to develop different skills, and I so I my brain probably would think a little bit differently. So I need to be around you and Cheryl more because to have that innate ability where you just think, I've done my work here, had a great time, met amazing people, these won't go away, but maybe I can find something else, or maybe there is something else that appeals.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I think this is also how I think about it. And it's just I think that once you well, number one, it's more fun this way,
Yeah.
right? Because you really get to discover firsthand different industries, different companies, different way of doing things, different ways of thinking. So that's number one. But also, I really truly believe it has an enormous impact on your personal development as a person. It
Yeah.
builds confidence so
Mm.
much. I just feel like because you like you were said you're because you're so adaptable, you become so adaptable. You're like, oh yeah, I can do that. This looks scary, but I can do it. I've done it before. So I do feel like it really I know it changes your brain. It absolutely
Mm.
anatomically changes your brain, and it's a tremendous opportunity for our personal as well as professional growth.
Yeah. So just a quick question around that, and I guess it's for me a little bit, but certainly I feel that I feel that I'm asking this question for other people either watching or listening. So I'm sure there will be people watching and listening that think, I would love to do something else. I would love to pursue something that's probably been, they might have verbalized it to maybe some close friends or family, or maybe they haven't, but they feel maybe there's a little bit of fear there because they've been in the job for 5, 7,
Absolutely.
8, 10 years. And the idea of pursuing something that is maybe to them at this point feel like a dream that is not reachable. The reason I want to ask you that question because I feel, and I don't know this, but I feel that the way that you approach this is different. And I would like to maybe see if you can pass on any words of wisdom for people that might fit into the category that I've just referenced.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to share what I feel has worked for me, right? And I hope it's going to work for others. And so I think that if you have a dream, first of all, dreams do come true, right? So let's just stick with that, right? Even if we have a dream, no matter how distant it is, um, it's shoot for the moon because you'll still end up among stars,
Mm.
right? So I feel like, and I feel like your podcasts here, Paul, are really perfect. It's the whole concept of failure because I think that maybe once we kind of start
Mm.
thinking about branching out in other areas, we're like, okay, well, what if my interview goes wrong?
Mm.
What if I don't get selected? What if my recruiter doesn't reply to my calls, etc.? So I think that if we don't try, we're never going to know where this takes us, right? So I think the first step is just give it a try. If you're interested in a specific company, if you're interested in a specific field, start getting those applications out. Start reaching out to recruiters who are in the company, in the area, etc. What's the kind of what can happen by you dropping a recruiter a note and asking them a question or asking them to have a quick informational interview with you, right? The worst they can say is that they don't reply or they say no, right? The thing is that it's really, I think it really, no matter who you ask, a lot of the times people do reply, right? And maybe they are not able to meet with you for an informational interview. Maybe they can offer you a piece of advice. Hey, look, we're not recruiting right now, but reach out in 2 months because I'm expecting to have a number of roles that we will be able, that I'll have available where you would be a good candidate. Start reaching out, start taking the first step. Taking the first step is really, I think the most important part here, because then it's just the process is gonna start rolling. So I feel like you are gonna get rejected. Like all of us get rejected. Sometimes when I talk to people who are, I work as a mentor a lot, as a volunteer to younger people, and they ask me, you mean you've got rejected for roles before? And I said, oh my God, I get rejected like 98% of the time, right? So it's part of the process. I know it's hard. Like it's really, whenever you get a rejection from somebody, you think, oh my God, like I suck, I'm a failure, I'm not gonna do it. It's part of the process, so we accept it, right? We get a rejection, we move on to the next role. So I think that once we kind of change our mindset a little bit and accept that rejections are going to happen, they're part of the process, but that's not going to stop us from continuing to work on achieving our dream. So I would say that it's just really maybe changing your mindset a little bit and taking the first step.
Yeah.
And I think that, and always have belief in yourself. You're put in this world because you're so unique. Your qualities are so unique. You are here to make a difference, right? Your skill set, your knowledge set is very unique. So there is a role for you in an amazing place somewhere. Yeah. So these are, I think, the kind of the things that worked for me. For me, it was really difficult to change industries, and I had to be prepared for lots of rejections, right? Because I didn't have experience in that industry. But I think once you kind of filter those rejections and you focus on your goal, you focus on your dream, I found that to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I love what you just said, and it really encapsulates a wonderful approach that we should have, and we can harvest. It doesn't happen overnight. It will take time. I think it takes practice. I listened to a wonderful podcast. Actually, I've been listening to it over the last day or so. I don't think I've quite finished it yet, but there's a podcast with Tim Ferriss and Noah Kagan, and they kind of talk about this a little bit. So they talk about the idea that we should practice asking. So if we want something, we should practice asking. So like you as an example, I reached out to you because I heard you on Simon's podcast.
Yes.
Love the discussion. So if I didn't, I'm almost giving myself a pat on the back here, but I need to practice asking more. But I reached out to you. You didn't know me. You had to kind of assess it. Who is he? Why does he want to talk to me? This, that, and the other. And you were kind enough to say, okay, happy to have an exploratory conversation with you. But they're saying that we should practice asking more. They get rejected still, like you, doing well in their respective careers. They still get rejected. But they said, which I think is very good, is really interesting as well, that say, for example, that somebody's listening that might, we'll use maybe jobs as an example. Somebody might have that they might want to get a career in finance, and they might have a role that they want to pursue, a particular area of finance. So to their mind, what they kind of should be doing is practicing by maybe applying for other jobs. They might have a utopian job. In fact, practice applying for other jobs that aren't the dream job, to get the experience there, to get the experience of the application. Fingers crossed that goes well. Get the interview. Hopefully you get a first interview. Hopefully that goes well. second interview. But if they don't go well, not a problem, because they're not the kind of the dream job. So asking, doing just gives us that. It's almost a preparation ground.
Absolutely. I could not agree more, Simon. Sorry, Paul. And you just mentioned Simon, so it's like,
Yeah. Well, we need to meet your friend.
mutual friend. So, Paul, what you just described, this is exactly the steps that I took, I feel like.
Okay.
Because I applied for roles where I felt like, well, I mean, I'm good fit, but this is not a dream job. But I applied so I could get some interview practice. I went to the interviews. I took the time. I prepped for them so I could practice answering the questions. I actually intentionally did interview practice. I went on interviews. I mean, I know it was very, selfish, but nonetheless, I found those practices to be super helpful. I really felt that down the road, they made me feel more confident. I knew how I could repurpose my existing responses to adapt to, a question that maybe was asked a little bit differently. So I already had my talking points as I was going through different interviews. And another point that I just wanted to make is that, don't forget the power of networking. Reach out to people in the field, use LinkedIn, ask friends if they know somebody who has gone through this, because personal advice, recommendations, etc., are, you can't find that anywhere else. So seek out networking opportunities that will definitely help you as well.
No, absolutely. And just one last point on this, and it kind of touches, it's a question actually I have for you, and I don't know the answer, so that's why I want to ask it. So they also spoke about, I guess, from a careers perspective, it might be a different slant on volunteering, but they were talking about the idea that for their career, in order to progress and to achieve certain things at different stages in their career, what they've done, they may have reached out to somebody to say, look, I really want to work for your company. I've got no experience in, well, they may have not said that, but the person might have said that, okay, what's your experience? Well, I don't have an experience this at the moment, but I appreciate, actually, I'll give you a better example, actually. So Noah worked for Mint, and he wanted a job in their marketing team. And this was probably in their early days. So the guy was like, well, we don't really have any experience. So Noah said, okay, let me produce a marketing strategy plan. If you decide that you like it, I'll do the strategy plan for free.
Okay.
If you don't like it, then you'll never hear from me again. If you do like it, then maybe we can discuss an opportunity. So he spent, I guess, I can't remember how long he spent. He spent maybe a weekend or 3 or 4 days, head down, putting a strategy plan together. And actually, the guy liked it, and he got a job. So he actually got a job. So I think he worked for him for a little bit, maybe for free, but then he got a job. But there's that ability. It's sort of thinking outside the box where we do things and we might not necessarily get paid. It's probably not exactly what we're going to cover today, but there's an element of volunteering there.
Agree 100%. And also, I think that, especially when you volunteer, let's say for a non-for-profit, and you become really interested in an organization, there's so many ways also to explore, getting a full-time opportunity within the organization, right? I mean, volunteering really allows you to understand what is their mission, what are their goals, what is it that they're all about. Perhaps you will be interested, in a leadership role in a non-for-profit, and it will become a full-time job. So that is also another way to connect things here when it comes to volunteering.
Absolutely. So now I would love to delve into the power of volunteering. You mentioned earlier that you got into volunteering at quite an early age. So maybe you can recall that episode and how it happens.
Yes, and it's it's kind of cute, I think. So when I grew up in Soviet Russia, and at that time, of course, the Communist Party was in power, and as little kids, even as we started, in first grade, the the communist, I guess, curriculum was in full force, and part of the communist curriculum was the volunteer aspect of things, right? Because they wanted the us, the little growing communist children, to become good people. So we had lots of projects in school that were volunteer based, but we were also encouraged as children to kind of proactively volunteer in our own communities. And I remember very vividly that one of the examples of volunteering opportunities that was shared with us as little children, so I would say maybe like start of middle school, like maybe fourth grade or something like that, so that they said, well, when you guys are hanging out, outside, downtown, seek out people who you think may need your help. So think an elderly person carrying heavy groceries from a grocery store to their house. Approach them and ask them if they need your help. And I mean, I don't think a lot of kids actually, did that in their free time, but my friends, my couple of friends and we actually thought it was a great idea, and we did it. We proactively did it. So we would seek out an elderly person outside who was carrying groceries, and we would approach them and would say, would you like our help? And almost always the person said yes. So we did. We would carry their groceries to their apartment. And I still remember, probably, I don't know, I was probably 9, 10. I still remember that feeling of how, to see how thankful that person was for the fact that we helped them out. They offered us chocolates, they invited us for a cup of tea. And it was just, and sometimes we would, hang out with them for a little bit. And I thought it was the most amazing feeling. It made me feel so good. And, so I volunteered on different things throughout my school years. And then as a college student, I did quite a few, we had lots of volunteer opportunities. And I still remember one of the volunteer projects I did in college was reading for a visually impaired student. So that was a perfect opportunity. I think maybe that was like the second visually impaired person that I met in my life. So it was really great exposure for me to understand, okay, so this is how this student makes his college career a success. They utilize help of another person to read for them, for example. And we actually kind of, built kind of a friendship with that person. And I felt that that's really cool. And he was so thankful. He said that, I had a nice voice, which was so kind, and we just really we really connected, and it was a really cool experience. And then now that I volunteer within my organization and outside of my organization, because it makes me feel so good. I really am 100% confident that volunteering plays a huge role in me being happy. And there's scientific research that shows that. Volunteering makes us happier people. And science says that also it can improve our mental health. So I am a living and breathing example of that. I am fully convinced that this is the case. And I just, I'm just having fun volunteering within my organization outside. I volunteer for various non-for-profits. As we mentioned before, I sit on a non-for-profit board of directors for an organization which is based here in Chicago in the States called WorldChicago. And I've recently joined an advisory council of another non-for-profit called Language Connects Foundation. And I'm having lots of fun meeting new people. I'm having lots of fun helping these organizations accomplish their goals and, meeting their financial goals. And it's a really rewarding experience, especially when I see firsthand how these organizations are helping make our world a better place. And I'm part of it. Paul. So it's just an amazing feeling.
So congratulations on the new board position. I wasn't aware of that. And thank you for your lovely answer. As you answered, I was thinking around volunteering. So I wonder if for people listening and watching who of thinking, because who doesn't want to be happier? And if we can do something to make us happier, potentially that we have some interest in and volunteering at the same time, and it's going to support our well-being, maybe people can just maybe jot down, do I want to be happier? That's, I would imagine for 100% of people are going to say, yes, I want to be happier. And then maybe they can think about what interest do I have? And then maybe they can isolate what interest they've got, then maybe they can write down, well, what charities exist, or it doesn't have to be charity, it can potentially it can be a charity, but charity, non-profit, what
Absolutely.
in that realm exists where I can maybe lend support, grow network, and actually make a difference, not just the people you're volunteering for, but to my life.
Yes, exactly. And these are exactly the steps that I took, for example, when I started kind of seeking out board opportunities, because for me, just a little bit tiny comment on the board of directors leadership for non-for-profits, I felt to me that this would be a perfect opportunity to volunteer and to enhance my leadership skills.
Yeah.
Right. So what I did, I just wanted to share how I found my board position. So like you were just describing, I knew that the organization for which I would like to serve on the board had to do with international exchanges. That was my focus.
Okay.
This is the type of organization that I wanted to help and to serve on the board for. So I said, okay, I want this organization to be local because I want to be able to attend events, in-person meetings. I want to grow my network locally. And I want this organization to be small because maybe at this point, I don't feel so comfortable joining, a huge non-for-profit because maybe it's overwhelming for me right now. So I did a Google search. I literally did a Google search. And I think I entered, the search bar, something like international exchange nonprofits, Chicago, something like that.
Yeah.
And, a series of organizations, there were actually not a ton, that came up. I was familiar with some of them. And then I started narrowing down my list. And then I subscribed to the newsletter of WorldChicago, which was the organization. I was like, this looks like a good fit.
Yeah.
I subscribed to their newsletter. I was reading, it was, I think at that time, a weekly newsletter. I was reading that newsletter, trying to understand, okay, is this a good fit for me? And after that, after a certain time, I'm like, yep, this is it. I think, I found the organization I'm looking for. I reached out to the organization's president and I asked her if, they're looking for board members, and the rest is history.
That's fantastic. And that's WorldChicago.
That's WorldChicago.
And do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what WorldChicago does? Because what it does is amazing. So I think it's worth a little overview of what they do.
Absolutely. WorldChicago is amazing, and I'm so happy to put a plug in here for them. So WorldChicago is a Chicago-based non-for-profit organization, which it partners very closely with U.S. Department of State in that they have a series of programs that are focused on international exchanges with professionals as well as young people from all over the world. So WorldChicago works together with Department of State, U.S. Department of State, to bring people from other countries in the U.S. so that they get experience professionally, as well as with the Chicago community, because they stay with Chicago families while they're here, right? And then they get, they learn different, new things about Chicago-based businesses so that they can use that knowledge when they go back to their communities and start making a positive difference, create jobs in their communities in other countries. So there's lots of things here. And then we're actually super, super excited about WorldChicago launching a new program this year, which is because we really want to make sure that there's more Chicago communities, which we have lots and lots, right? We have lots of neighborhoods. It's a very diverse city, obviously, right? So we really want to make sure that more of Chicago people Chicago communities are involved in international exchanges, and more kids consider careers in international diplomacy. So we really are going to be focusing on communities, on underprivileged communities within the Chicago West Side and South Side. So we are going to be creating a program specifically for high school kids in these communities who may be interested in exploring careers in international diplomacy. We will be creating workshops for them so that they start understanding what international diplomacy is all about. We will be giving them opportunities to interact with their counterparts in other countries so that they better understand and realize what's happening beyond my Chicago community, right? These are the kids just like me. They dream just like me. They need things and want things just like me. And then the program will culminate in the ideas that it culminates in a trip overseas. We're exploring countries in Africa where we're gonna take those group of Chicago kids and let them experience local language, local culture, stay with local families, meet local business leaders, etc., so that they really expand their horizons and see what the world beyond Chicago is all about. So super, super excited. I think that it's really, it's a wonderful organization that has so much impact within our own community here in Chicago and beyond the world. And I think the most important thing about WorldChicago, which makes me super excited, is that when we connect people like that, what happens? Like, we start liking each other. We start appreciating our uniqueness. We celebrate our differences instead of, being scared of them. Yeah. And when this happens, when people start liking each other, we have peace in the world, right? So I think that this is, that what really excites me when we do things like that is that, in a small way, we are contributing to world peace. And, it's so important in today's world, as we all know.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what's lovely around WorldChicago and what they do, you see the common ground that everybody has, because the world, unfortunately, leaders and whatnot, because they don't, when I say leaders, I mean sort of the global figurehead. Not sometimes, a lot of the time there's confusion and there's division and so forth. But what WorldChicago does, it really cuts through all that. It fosters entrepreneurship, ideas, collaboration, and almost that spirit, that idea that anything's possible. And then you're able to connect people from all over the world, because people from different parts of the world can submit their ideas, go and work with companies in the US, develop these relationships that will be everlasting. And there's definitely not enough of that in the world at the moment. So the work they do is phenomenal.
Exactly. And then those visitors who come to Chicago, they take those ideas, they take that knowledge, they get those skills, and then they go back to their communities, and it's a ripple effect, right? Like we just talked about, right? So they create jobs, they expand their businesses, and they make a difference in their community. It's a ripple effect. Just everyone benefits, and then they go and they benefit somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And and just to conclude that bit, and then I just want to get back into the volunteering again. So all those people that are involved in this kind of exchange program, I just think that these people, because they've developed these relationships and they become more international, become more global citizens, they're almost champions of the idea that we should be engaging with people locally, but also internationally as well. And also you're developing community, international communities, international relationships, and we definitely need more of that. So it's a wonderful initiative, WorldChicago. So what I will do is put a link to WorldChicago on the show notes. So anybody that wants to know more, they will be able to, I guess, investigate via the link and so forth. So
thanks so much, Paul.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. So what I wanted to ask about volunteering, do you think that there's maybe kind of like a misconception about volunteering, what it means, what it's going to take from you, as opposed to what it's going to give to you?
Yes. So, and I agree that it's a common misconception because when we think about volunteering, a lot of people, when they think about volunteering, it's a time commitment.
Mm,
You're not getting paid for it,
mm,
right? Nobody's going to pay. If you go and you help somebody, you volunteer time. And so, but I think that, which is true, right? You will need, some kind of a time commitment, and it doesn't have to be a ton of time, right? I mean, if you want to volunteer 1 hour a month, or 1 hour every 2 months, start with that, right? Just to get a feel of it. But the benefits of volunteering,
mm.
I mean, I can't even begin to start counting, right? And I think we touched a little bit on some of them, but maybe, I can just
Oh, it'd be great.
share.
Yeah, it'd be great to share more.
Yep. And I can just share kind of the first things that come to mind. So, number one, we start building relationships, and sometimes building relationships with people who are very different from us, right? And I feel like connecting with people who are very different from us, it's actually something we should be striving for.
Mm,
Like, we should really be looking to connect with people who are different than us, than are the same as us, because the perspectives that these people who are different from us have can really be eye-opening.
yeah.
And I think in some ways, maybe even life-changing. So if, I always encourage, my son, my husband, and myself to seek out making friendships, making acquaintances with people who are not like you. So this is, I think volunteering is that one area, because when you go into your community, you don't know what kind of people you're going to meet, right? And so that's one. So building relationships is huge, right? Is going to be friendships. There's going to be networking, huge plus, right? Instead of just typing on your computer and going on to LinkedIn, like the hour that you spend reaching out to people on LinkedIn, go volunteer and meet people, right?
Yeah.
So kind of it equals out if you think about it. Number two, leadership skills, and I talked a little bit about that as well, right? So and this can be, again, like, you don't have to be on board of directors for a non-for-profit to build leadership skills, but you absolutely can, right? Because again, you volunteer and you build your leadership skills, because on the board of directors, you play a very important role in the growth of an entire organization. You have a say in how things are run. So for those of you, who are senior leaders or aspiring senior leaders in companies, right, in the private sector, it's an amazing opportunity to start building that confidence, enhancing your leadership skills in making those decisions, having a say, sharing your skills, and helping the non-for-profit, take them to a new level. So leadership skills are definitely a huge one here. Number three, you will likely be learning some new skills as you're volunteering, right?
Most definitely, I would imagine.
Absolutely. So whether you're going to be, mentoring, right? Because when you mentor, you actually come to realizations that you may have never thought about, right? I mean, it improves your communication skills, right? I mean, again, you are building your network. So it's really, new skills are absolutely critical here, right? Like you're definitely gonna gain some new skills. And when we were talking about even, maybe transitioning to a new field, a lot of people use volunteer opportunities, their achievements as a volunteer, to put on their resume, right? Like if you built a marketing plan or marketing strategy, volunteering for a non-for-profit organization, put it on your resume if you're looking for a marketing role in a company, right? So that's another aspect of it. And of course, when you do something good for someone, when somebody thanks you from the bottom of your heart for your help, it's a great feeling. It's you're going to get that great feeling of happiness that we just talked about. And I guarantee that, for the rest of the day, you're going to be like the happiest person, right? So long-term absolutely contributes to our happiness, contributes to our mental health. And it's really, I think everyone's journey with volunteering is unique, right? Depending on, kind of how you want to take it, whether you want to take it full force or you want to take it slow. I feel like it's really, the benefits could be also very unique, for others. But for me, I felt like these are the main ones. This is what makes volunteering for me worthwhile. And another thing, sorry, one more thing, Paul. Sometimes we work in, a certain company, we do a certain thing, right? Like, I don't know, I work for Nestle and I'm in marketing, but I'm really interested in another field, let's say. And I'm really interested, maybe I'm not saving lives in my role. I'm not building world peace, but I want to be able to make a difference. And I really am interested, I don't know, in World Wildlife Fund. I want to save animals. Go volunteer. This is your opportunity to find that fulfilling volunteer role for something you've always wanted to do, but didn't quite know where to go, right? So reach out to World Wildlife Fund, see if they need volunteers, see if they need leaders. They always need advocates, right? So I feel like this is a great balance for those who are seeking to find maybe purpose for their life, for a cause that they care so much about. So that's another layer of volunteering for me.
There's so many layers, and
exactly.
I love the idea that, particularly if we're career focused and people looking to advance themselves, there, volunteering is only going to make us more employable. Employers love the idea of people that show initiative. It shows they've got a bit about them, a bit of purpose, and also we're developing that skill base. Also, I think the thing about volunteering that I was reading earlier, it increases empathy with people. So
absolutely,
empathy can be a little bit lost today in today's climate, where we think about differences. We don't think about similarities. We don't think about other people's problems. We don't think about actually how we can impact people, or indeed how other people can impact us.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I think that this is also, kind of empathy can definitely be tied to the fact that once you start volunteering, you will be meeting people who are very different from you. And this is like where that empathy quality kicks in, is that, oh my God, I never realized that this is how, these types of groups or whatever can feel. And I get it. Like I understand maybe why a certain person behaves this way, or why this certain person says what they say. Now it all makes sense, right? So I absolutely agree with that observation.
Yeah. Before we hit the record button, or earlier on today, I just did a Google search of a couple of random volunteering initiatives that exist. So one I found was the Great British Spring Clean, which I wasn't familiar with, which is an annual campaign to keep Britain tidy. So anybody in the UK that's part of that, well done. So what I like about that is that's I guess an initiative, there's a national initiative about how we can keep litter off the streets, how we can be more aware why we should be living in a cleaner environment. So you've got like-minded people that have come together to actually form this initiative and actually make it an annual event that kind of happens throughout the year. So I thought that was really good. Another one,
absolutely, and think about all the cool people you're going to meet too, as you're doing that, right?
Exactly, common goal. So there could be so maybe even somebody might be listening or watching that has an idea, a worthwhile idea, where they could think, well, actually, could I set up a non-profit? Could I set up something where I can actually do some benefit for my community or for a certain group? Because actually that's going, so I guess going back to your point, that's going to help in terms of their skill development. It's going to help in terms of enriching their community. It's going to help just in terms of building something from ground up, that there's loads of benefits. I can't think of them all, but there's so that might be something. And there's one more that I want to reference to you. Another one I found was Teach for America, which is a non-profit that
Yes.
trains college graduates to teach in deprived communities. And I thought that's a really good one.
Fantastic. There's really just a ton of opportunities. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think, it's sky's the limit when it comes to non-for-profits or the types of volunteer work that you can do. I mean, it's just a matter of, I think, your interests. There's lots of opportunities for what you'd like to explore. I'm certain of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's been fabulous today is I definitely think it's important I think to give volunteering almost like a little paint so people understand that there are huge benefits. Volunteering it's almost actually, we shouldn't think of it of we don't have enough time. It's almost making the best use of our time.
Yes.
Because we can focus on all these different areas of growth, and there might be areas that we particularly have some interest in where we can find, to your point, what you did, you found an organization or organizations that you can support. You've got a passion for those areas, but I'm sure it's impacted your professional career. And maybe if somebody's got a particular passion, maybe they can just think about how they can maybe do a Google search about how would I set something up where I can actually, it might be something in their own community, or there might be a national thing or an international thing where they can set something up if they feel that particular area need some focus.
Absolutely. And imagine how exciting that would be.
Yeah. And I'm conscious of your time because so for me, I'm in the UK, so I'm good. It's kind of like towards the end of my working day.
Yes, Paul.
You've still got a busy day ahead of you. So I love talking to you. So definitely we will be having more conversations where we'll probably cover a different subject. But if anybody's got any questions on volunteering, if you'll be happy to field any questions, if anybody wants to drop an email, if they've
absolutely,
but we can leave your details. And the people that would like to reach out to you or find out a little bit more about you, would LinkedIn be a good point of
fantastic?
Yeah.
Please reach out.
Okay, lovely. And my last question is, this is the reoccurring question. So if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, even alive or past, who might you invite?
All right. So I'm going to start with someone. Probably nobody who's listening to this call is going to know this person, but she is a Russian pop star. Okay. And I don't even like really pop music. And I honestly don't really even, I'm not a huge fan of her work, but her name is Alla Pugacheva. But she is somebody who I would say maybe like a Russian equivalent of Madonna, I would say, right? So something like that. And even though I'm not a huge fan of her maybe music necessarily, but I've been very impressed since the war with Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine started, well, since Russia invaded Ukraine, really. The strong stand that she took against the war and really spoke up, despite the fact that she knew 100% that was going to ruin her popularity among her fans, right? So she was not afraid to take that step and just follow her heart, follow the truth, speak her truth. So super inspirational for me, very brave woman, I felt like, and not afraid to share her opinion. So that number one, and this is actually something new for me. Like it's since things in our world are changing. Yeah, like I would have never thought that I would be a fan of hers, but I am. She's like number one, number one big one for me. Number 2, Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
I feel like she is, and speaking of even, volunteering, she's the one who spreads kindness and good. And she wants, she is the one who really makes a difference in creating a better world. everything that she does, how she does it, how she communicates, how she treats people, just absolutely admirable. So would love to have dinner with her. And I would say the third person would be Sarah Blakely. And we talked about Sarah a little bit during our last podcast, but she is the American entrepreneur who is has been very vocal about failure, right?
Yeah.
That a failure is we need it in our lives in order to grow.
Yeah.
This is how she built her empire, her business empire. She opened her non-for-profit. She is making a difference every day and helping lots and lots of, especially women, in their life journey. So when we also kind of tying it again back to like asking a question, right? Don't be afraid to get rejected. You never know what this asking a question is gonna do for you in the future. So these would be, they're all free women, but in any case, super inspired by what they do, and would love to have a chat with them.
You know what? I'd love that dinner to happen. If I could wave even a magic wand and that to happen, I would just love you to have the dinner. And actually, our next episode would be about the dinner.
Love it, Paul. Love it.
So it could be lessons from a dinner or something. Obviously you could have the stuff that you want to keep private, but then there would be lessons, what you extracted from it. That would be phenomenal. So anything's possible in life. So maybe we can share this episode, get some kind of pincer movement together, and you never know. We live in hope. We live in hope.
Agree, Paul.
But Tatyana, thank you so much. Really, really, really enjoyed this discussion. Not a subject that I've covered before, so I'm glad that I've covered it. Definitely more knowledgeable, and hopefully people will view exploring as a real opportunity for them in so many different ways.
Agree. And thanks so much, Paul. As always, so great to connect with you. And thank you also for allowing me to share my experience. And hopefully it will serve an inspiration for your listeners.
Absolutely. I'm fairly emphatic it will. And I'm already looking forward to our next discussion. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So if you're watching this episode on YouTube, please do subscribe, because it really does help us grow the podcast and the channel. And thank you for tuning in, because your feedback is most welcome. So please let us know about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. And you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So until the next time, take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.